Explaining yourself to someone who already plans to misunderstand you has a cost. Every extra sentence can feel like a bid for fairness, but it usually ends up as a slow surrender of self-respect. You keep talking because some part of you still hopes clarity will fix the bond. It is awkward to admit that sometimes the more honest you become, the less humanely your honesty gets treated. That is where the Stoic move starts to matter. Some people are not looking for truth. They are looking for access, reaction, and evidence that they can still disturb your inner weather. So the cleaner path is not sharper arguments. It is quieter judgment. Stop performing your pain for people who have already earned your distance. Across this piece, the focus is simple. 7 Stoic tools and principles for leaving toxic people without drama, speeches, or one last emotional trial. The point is not to look cold. The point is to protect your mind, reclaim your energy, and rebuild your identity without asking permission from the people who weakened it. Keep one rule close from the start. The moment you feel forced to explain your worth, step back instead of leaning in. That step back is where the frame changes. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, avoidance, or passive aggression, but that reading misses the point. Silence is weak only when it comes from fear. When it comes from judgment, it becomes authority. Strategic detachment is not disappearing because you are damaged. It is withdrawing access because you finally understand what your energy actually costs. And that shift changes everything. The pattern is usually embarrassingly familiar. They provoke. You explain. They distort. You defend. They accuse. You over-clarify. It feels productive in the moment, but it trains you to seek permission from people who benefit from your confusion. That is the deeper loss. Not just the relationship, but the quiet outsourcing of self-respect. The Stoic move cuts cleaner than that. You stop trying to win inside their courtroom. You stop acting as if every accusation deserves a trial. You stop treating your life like an open comment section. The working model here is simple. Pause. Withhold. Withdraw. Rebuild. This is not about punishing them or staging some dramatic disappearance. It is about refusing to keep financing your own depletion. Tool number 1. Use non-reaction to break their reward loop. Do not feed the hook. That is the first test, especially when the bait is dressed up as feedback. In a meeting, someone says, "Interesting idea. You always make things more complicated than they need to be." The room goes quiet. You can feel that old reflex rise fast. Explain. Defend. Prove. It is awkward because a part of you still wants to look reasonable in front of everyone. But that is exactly where the trap is. Provocation is often bait, not communication. If you react on cue, they learn your buttons still work, and they keep pressing them. Non-reaction is not passive. It is not stuffing emotion down. It is choosing not to hand over the controls of your nervous system. A small pause. A neutral face. Maybe just one word. Noted. Then back to the agenda. That shift sounds simple, but simple is not easy when your body wants to perform the old pattern. So give yourself a clean rule. If the comment is designed to provoke rather than clarify, do not reward it with emotion. Sometimes the strongest line is, "I am not going to engage with that." Sometimes it is no line at all. Use a quick scorecard after. Did I raise my voice? Did I over-explain? Did I keep the bait alive after the first hit? If you can score 3 out of 3, you kept command. But that is only the first win. The bigger mistake usually comes later, when silence turns into the urge to deliver one last speech. Tool number 2. Refuse the exit speech. No closing argument. That is the move, especially when the late-night message arrives right on schedule. So that is it. After everything, you are not even going to explain yourself. Your chest tightens because you want to sound fair, mature, and measured. That is the awkward part. The urge to explain can feel like integrity when it is really just the old pattern asking for one more turn. The problem is that some people do not use your honesty to understand you. They use it to reopen the case. Every detail becomes material. Every feeling becomes evidence. Every explanation becomes another handle they can grab. So the clean Stoic response is not a long goodbye. It is a closed door. You do not owe a closing argument to someone who has repeatedly turned your openness into ammunition. Keep the language short and hard to misuse. I am stepping away from this dynamic. I will not be discussing it further. That is enough. One clear sentence is often stronger than a page of careful nuance. No essay. No emotional appendix. No defense brief. Before you send anything, run a quick test. Is it under 2 sentences? Does it state a boundary instead of telling your life story? Does it leave no room for debate? If yes, send it. If not, cut it in half. And even after you say less, another temptation waits underneath. You start wanting to manage what they think about your silence. Tool number 3. Stop outsourcing your peace to their opinion. Stay in your lane. That sounds simple until a relative says, "You have changed. You used to be more humble." What they often mean is less flattering. You used to be easier to access, easier to guilt, easier to steer. The awkward part is that your first instinct may still be to explain your growth so they do not walk away with the wrong story. That instinct feels noble, but it usually hides a trap. The urge to explain is often a disguised attempt to manage another person's perception. Stoicism cuts that cleanly. Your values are yours. Your choices are yours. Your tone and your boundary are yours. Their interpretation is not. Peace gets stronger the moment you stop treating reputation management like a moral obligation. A useful line here is short and almost boring. You are allowed to see it that way. That sentence does not surrender your position. It simply refuses the job of correcting every private opinion about you. Replace persuasion with permission. Let them keep their version if keeping your peace requires it. When guilt or mental replay starts up later, use a fast check. My choice. My tone. My boundary. Their story about me. If your mind is wrestling with the fourth one, you are outside your jurisdiction. And once you stop chasing approval, something unexpected begins to happen. Being alone stops feeling like rejection and starts feeling like recovery. Tool number 4. Use solitude as purification, not loneliness. Detox the attachment. That is what this stage really is, even when it does not feel noble. Saturday afternoon. No messages. No noise. No one asking where you are or demanding another explanation. At first it feels calm. Then the itch starts. You reach for the phone. You want to check if they posted something, said something, replaced you, or found a new way to frame you. It is a little embarrassing how fast the hand moves on its own. That is the dangerous hour, because silence outside you starts exposing noise inside you. Solitude is where dependency becomes visible. It is also where self-reliance gets rebuilt. If you cannot bear your own company, you will keep drifting back toward bad company just to avoid that internal friction. Strategic detachment is not complete when contact ends. It is complete when being alone starts to feel cleaner than being entangled. So make the rule plain. No contact, no checking, no indirect surveillance through mutual friends. When the discomfort spikes, use a better sentence than panic. This discomfort is detox, not proof that I made the wrong decision. That one line can save you from reopening a door your mind has already decided to close. Track it for 7 days if you want something measurable. Count how many times you checked on them. Then count how many times you redirected into your own life instead. Push the ratio towards 0 checks and 3 redirects. But detachment is not fully secure until you remove the bridges that make relapse feel easy. Tool number 5. Burn the bridges back to the old self. No road back. That has to become more than a feeling. It has to become a design choice. You unblock them just in case. Or keep the draft message sitting there like a loaded weapon on the table. Not because you truly want them back, but because your old identity still wants an exit hatch. That is the awkward truth. Sometimes you are not attached to the person as much as you are attached to the role you used to play around them. That is why burning the ships matters. It is not dramatic. It is not punishment. It is removing the easy path back into a pattern that already cost you too much. The fixer wants one more chance to explain. The peacemaker wants one more conversation. The emotional janitor wants to clean up one more mess. But leaving fully means cutting access not just to them, but to the version of you that kept surviving on partial dignity. Make it concrete within 1 day. Delete the draft. Archive the photos. Mute the channel. Change the routine that keeps putting you back in the same emotional hallway. One physical action should match the internal decision within 24 hours. Use a simple audit if you need clarity. Digital bridge. Emotional bridge. Social bridge. Fantasy bridge. Name one and close one today. And when they finally notice your silence, do not be surprised if they call it arrogance. That word usually means they just lost access to the version of you they preferred. Tool number 6. Let them grieve the version of you they controlled. They miss your compliance more than they miss you. That becomes obvious the moment a mutual friend says they think you are cold now, or that you used to be kinder. What they usually mean is simpler and less flattering. You used to stay available even when the behavior was destructive. It is uncomfortable to hear that translation out loud because part of you still wants to rush in and prove you are not cruel. But that is where the old trap waits. When toxic people lose access, they often rename your boundary as arrogance, selfishness, or cruelty. That does not automatically mean your boundary is wrong. It means your absence interrupted a system that once worked for them. They are not mourning your character. They are mourning your compliance. And that distinction matters. This is where a lot of people relapse. They hear changed, selfish, cold, and immediately start explaining that they are still a good person. But goodness without boundaries becomes public property. Stoicism asks for something harder and cleaner. Stay just without remaining available to injustice. Use one line if guilt rises and you need a spine. I am comfortable being misunderstood if the price of being understood is self-betrayal. Then ask one question. Am I guilty because I did something wrong? Or because I stopped doing what benefited them? That single test clears a surprising amount of fog. And once their interpretation stops scaring you, a bigger shift becomes possible. You stop trying to prove anything and start becoming unrecognizable to the old story. Tool number 7. Make distinction, not revenge. Your final answer. Become harder to disturb. That is the real endpoint. Not proving you were right, and not waiting for them to notice your glow up. Months later, maybe you hear your name came up in a room you no longer enter, or you pass them at an event and feel the old charge try to spark. They expected bitterness. What unsettles them more is something quieter. Better sleep, cleaner work, sharper standards, less explaining, more substance. That is why revenge is too small a goal. Retaliation keeps you emotionally subcontracted to the person you claim to have left. The Stoic move is stricter than that. Be unlike the one who injured you. If they were manipulative, become direct. If they were chaotic, become disciplined. If they were loud, become precise. Distinction is not about looking superior. It is about refusing imitation, because imitation is still captivity. This is what the inner citadel looks like in ordinary life. A mind that is not open to every invasion. A self that does not treat every provocation like a summons. A calendar, a body, and a set of habits that no longer orbit one person's confusion. It sounds calm from the outside, but building it is awkward at first, because part of you still wants the satisfaction of being seen. Use one rule to stay clean. Build a life that makes no reference to your wound. Not, I will show them. Say this instead. I will become harder to disturb. Track it weekly. How fast do you recover after contact or memory? How often do you mention them? How much of your week serves your future instead of your injury? And once that starts to click, the biggest misunderstanding still has to be broken apart. The claim that silence is weakness. Silence gets called weakness by people who only respect access. That is the misunderstanding to clear out before moving on. Mature people do explain when the explanation can repair something real, clarify a conflict, or honor a relationship that still has good faith underneath it. But that is not the same as handing more words to someone who twists them on contact. When a person treats your openness like entitlement, more explanation is not maturity. It is self-exposure without purpose. Silence is not automatically virtuous, and openness is not automatically brave. The real test is simpler. Spock. What protects your character, preserves your energy, and refuses chaos? In toxic dynamics, strategic silence often passes that test. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from explaining yourself to someone who was never trying to understand you in the first place. You see it in the repeated late-night text, the long reply that gets ignored except for one phrase they can use against you, the silence that follows when you finally stop answering. That is usually the moment the pattern becomes visible. The words were never building a bridge. They were funding a cycle, and the peace arrived before the apology ever did. The peace arrives in small proofs, so make this practical for 7 days. On day 1, identify the person or pattern that keeps draining your attention. On day 2, write the explanation you want to send and do not send it. Day 3, reduce access. Mute, block, unfollow, or delay the reply. Day 4, practice one clean non-reaction in real time. Day 5, spend 30 minutes alone without checking on them. Day 6, close one bridge back to the old self. Day 7, build one thing that belongs to your future. Then track it like an experiment instead of a mood. Give yourself 4 daily scores from 1 to 5. Reactivity. Urge to explain. Boundary strength. Inner calm. Compare day 1 to day 7. The goal is not perfection. The goal is evidence that your peace rises when your explanations fall. Build the inner citadel quietly. That is the final move, and it is less dramatic than most people expect. The power of disappearing is not about hurting them. It is about rescuing yourself. When you stop explaining your worth to the wrong audience, your life stops feeling like a public debate. Let your standards become your statement. Let your absence finish the argument your words never could. And if this landed, the next layer is worth exploring, because the real architecture behind all of this is psychological boundaries.